My name is Adriana Quinones, and I'm the head of UN Women office in Geneva. We are working with the Human Rights Council to integrate a gender perspective. We're working on health, humanitarian issues, science and technology, all the issues that affect women and girls. I am originally from Colombia, and I've worked with UN Women for almost 14 years. Well, I think I got a lot of inspiration from my mother and my sister. I was raised by a single mom, but I also had amazing teachers in high school that started showing me about apartheid, about dictatorships in Latin America, about our internal armed conflict, and I became very conscious of the role of women and girls and how we need to be supportive of each other, how there was so much inequality in terms of access to services, to jobs, to protection. And it just sparked a flame in me for seeking justice and for working to improve the situation anywhere I could be helpful. Yeah, I think there's a huge absence of women in decision making. And I have worked on this issue for the last 25 years, and I see very little improvement, unfortunately. We have documented, for example, very different forms of violence against women and girls, but we have not yet reached women sitting at the table. UN Women just released a report on COVID and its response, and we showcase how only 25% of task forces around the world for COVID response include women. We have not gone beyond 30% of participation of women in parliaments, and we have very limited number of women in boards of companies, as CEOs, and of course as heads of state. The fact that women are not at the table impacts all of the policy making, and we cannot assume that because there is expertise, women's needs are going to be taken and placed in a policy that really has impact. Women have to be in the design, implementation, evaluation, and accountability of public policies. And many times they're just consulted after the fact. So to me, this is the biggest gap that we have. We have lots of knowledge, but we don't have women sitting at the table. It's a very interesting question because we cannot assume that because there are platforms that are available to anyone who has use of the internet, women can participate on the same basis. Women tend to not have the same negotiation skills. They have been told many times that they are not to speak up, that they are not to be assertive about what their needs are and what they require. So when they are faced in a platform, for example, for trade, it's great that they have access, but they end up not getting the best deals because they are not necessarily prepared for negotiation, they don't have the networks, and they don't have the expertise. So these platforms are starting from a point of inequality, and we cannot forget that. New technologies that are developed without taking into account women's voices and women's participation could increase bias against women, could even do more harm than good, and this is something that is only now beginning to be part of the debate. But this assumption that now we're going to solve all problems without resolving the structural inequality that affects women and girls is really something that could give us a lot more problems in the future. So what we have seen is that existing violence has only increased with these platforms. It's not that it started, it was already in existence, and now these platforms are giving voice to people who promote hate, misogyny, and that want to silence women leaders. We see it a lot with human rights defenders, we see it with artists, we see it with women who want to solve a local problem, that they are attacked because it's not a space where women are expected to be. And we also saw this in India, in Delhi, with the Safe Cities project. we did an audit of public restrooms on the public premises, and we found that there were twice as many restrooms for men than for women. Why is that? Because women are not expected to be out on the streets, working, doing whatever it is that they want to be doing. They are expected to be at home. So when people start seeing women, and it's really something that's shocking to their image of how their world should look, they will start attacking them to silence their voices. And as with any new technology, we need to always be very conscious of can it hurt someone? Can it really interfere with the activity of someone who really is a leader at the community, who is contributing, or just any woman who's expressing herself? So all these things need to be in the mind of policymakers, those who develop new technologies, and we need to all be aware that women need to be protected everywhere, because there's a space for women to be attacked anywhere they are exercising their rights. Well, I think you have to have an extreme level of resilience and creativity. You have to assume that the doors will be shut down, not that they will be open because you happen to like women's rights and human rights and you want to work on the issue. On the contrary, you're going to face a lot of opposition. And the more impact that you produce, the more resistance you will get. So once one accepts this, it makes you unstoppable, because then it's not this, sad news, I didn't get supported, but okay, here's an obstacle, how do I overcome it? And little by little, it becomes a muscle. And then you don't see the difficulties, or your reaction to the difficulties is minimal. It's like, okay, this door is not opening, which is the next one. The other one is the sorority between women. The friendship between women keeps you alive, keeps you inspired. Always being in the company of women. I've been blessed to meet the most amazing women in the world. In every country that I've worked in, I always come out thinking it's unbelievable, with so little resources, facing so much violence, what these women have been able to achieve. So celebrating all these achievements, and also making sure that we're always working for increasing solutions for everyone. Making sure we don't get stuck in this conversation of women versus men, because it has nothing to do with what we want to achieve. What we want to achieve is innovation, new solutions, new conversations. And so once you're focused on that positive conversation, on the resilience that we have to have, and on the friendship that sustains us, I think the sky is the limit. Thank you. I think the major challenge is how big the conversations are. And you don't necessarily see an entry point, because there are things that are already ongoing. It's a very high level conversation. So if you don't necessarily come from a very big organization with a lot of budget, you may feel like you will not have necessarily impact or relevance. I have a very small team, and our office hadn't been active for a while, so it was about stepping up again, repositioning, making sure everyone knows that UN Women is here, that we can support. And many times we don't have the resources to support all the requests that are made to us, but to make sure we're always staying in dialogue with women. Afghan women had reached out to us, women from Ukraine, from Ethiopia, and so we always do our best to connect them to people who can help, to our own HQ in New York, to make sure we are doing what's most relevant. I think it's important to make sure that we take advantage of what Geneva offers, and we don't play small, even though it's a little bit overwhelming. So I would say my biggest challenge is how overwhelmed I felt, that I wanted to have an impact on so many resolutions, for example, at the Human Rights Council, showcase so much of the work that it's being done at country level. UN Women has offices in 90 countries. They are doing amazing work. I want everyone to know it, and to make sure that we can communicate it in a way that people understand it and see the value of coming and joining us in our efforts to work for gender equality. So I would say that. Also, I'm learning French, and it's very difficult.
You already know so many languages, but
so yeah. But I'll do it. I'll manage. To me, it has been very interesting to be able to reflect after many years working on this topic, but from different regions, from different perspectives. And it is that if you really listen to women, they already know what to do. And so we all have a role to play. When we have the privilege of a great education, I think we need to be that bridge. And so that's mainly what I have been able to do. I basically listen to women, what their strategic needs are, what they're telling me they want, and I bring different actors that can help us put that together. And then with the experience from other places, from other programs, enrich that and try to make it more systematic. I really don't like small pilots. I don't want like we did a little thing here. I really am desperate to see impact. So I'm always bringing those efforts that are very valuable and that contribute to creating kind of a theory of change. And so I was able to do that with femicide, for example, in Latin America. There was the investigation piece, which is very important, but then we supported putting together a model legislation on femicide for Latin America. And so when we started, there were 8 countries, and now there are like 18 countries that have typification for femicide based on the same premises, so it can be investigated. Then I looked at data collection, but that is not enough. Then services, and also supporting the women's movement, and also prevention, because this will never end if we don't invest in prevention. We put this theory of change together, and it has been funded by the European Union in 6 countries in Latin America, with important results. Of course, we need to keep at it for at least 10 years to really see the difference, but it's about bringing things together in a way that moves the issue forward. So I think that this is what drives me, thinking of how I put something together that can really have an impact. Something else I did in Guatemala is a national coalition for women's economic empowerment. This topic was not in the agenda. Everything was about women being a victim of violence. This is the conversation. During war, there was massive sexual violence against women, and especially indigenous women. And so, of course, there's all this that we need to deal with. But women are also supporting their families, creating new businesses. So it was about how do we create something that puts women at the center of the agenda in a way that we are not victims, we are contributing every day. And so we launched this in the context of generation equality 2 years ago. And what I'm proudest about is that last year there was an accountability session giving back to women. This is what we have achieved. At the time, there were like 70 partners from civil society, academia, different ministries, all committed to the same goal. And so to me, these are the kinds of things where everyone will contribute, everyone wants to be a part of. And my role has been to create those spaces. And then is the knowledge of women, and it's very humbling because every time I've listened to women, I've been successful, every time. So I don't need to invent myself the solution. I just need to really listen to the women on the ground, what they are telling me, what their needs are, how they think we can accomplish it. And then from my position, bring them together with other actors where we can achieve all this together. Because these are efforts that require the contribution of many people. So we can also never think that I will do this by myself. So it's a collective, and this is what's beautiful about feminism, is it's a collective response. It's thinking in different ways. It's solving problems, but with the knowledge, valuing the knowledge of everyone who's sitting at the table. If I had mentors, and the truth is that my bosses, almost all of them, I've just had one male boss who was very nice, but all my bosses have been women, feminists. I mean, now that I think about it, so lucky. Feminists, supportive. Sometimes I surprise them, being very young and saying, I want to manage this program. They're like, really? But they gave me a chance. And so I think also my advice to all the young women who are watching this is that you have to keep asking for the opportunities that you want, and you may not get all of them, but you get one, and with that you fly. And it's really been about that. And I have to say that I've always found the support of amazing women. Always. So I think there's always a reason to lose hope. There's always. But when you really invest yourself on something, and it's not about you, it's about somebody else, and you want to create a solution, and you're invested in that, and you give it your all, you notice the small things. So you did something. It's not huge, but it may have. For example, this work that I'm telling you on femicide, it took years. It took 5 years from the beginning. We need to investigate femicide to the end. We have a whole theory of change. We have funding to do more systematic work. It took years, but then there was a beginning, and now it's where we are. And so, basically, I think when you invest your heart on something, you find that satisfaction, because you know how much it took. Even if it's a little achievement, you know how much it cost you. So these are things that are dear to our hearts, So this keep us going. And then the friendships that you make, I've made the most amazing friendships with women who are leaders, because we came together to work on something. And so I know I have a network of women around the world. And so to me, this is my dream come true. I think it will be great to listen from very accomplished young women that you have all over the world, so that you can see them and be like, oh, she did it, I can do it. I think this is crucial. And I also think that there are people for everything. Not everyone is an entrepreneur, not everyone is an innovator. So there are people who are very good and skilled at some things, and then there are the people who thrive on challenges and creativity. So I think this is the people that you're gonna end up attracting, and not necessarily if someone doesn't feel comfortable. But it would be great to always have that as something that young women can say, okay, if I want to solve this problem, and you really have to care about the problem to solve it. This is huge. But I'm gonna cite Lili Ben-Ami, who is a young woman that came here for an event that we co-sponsored with Israeli Mission last year for International Day on the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Her sister was murdered by her husband, and you know what she said? Let's make of the memory of my sister a revolution. And so she now holds hackathons all over Israel to bring technology for the safety of women. And when I listen to women like her, it's like, she did it, but I know she did it not because of knowledge, very strong, it's out of passion to resolve an issue. She said, this cannot happen to anybody else, and I will do what it takes. And for me, it has always been like this, that women hold the answers, and not necessarily they have felt comfortable saying, this is my answer, this is what I think. It's very difficult to fund amazing ideas that women have. But an organization like UN Women, even though we don't have tons and tons of resources, we always should have more resources, we are able to fund with small grants things like this. So to me, this is essential, because we can continue doing very big things, and this is what gets all the attention, but social change is coming from other places too. And so we can place our attention on those young women who are changing the world. They are everywhere.